Well, hello and welcome to Wild Vittles. On today's episode, we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to cook Cajun sauce piquant. And that is kind of like a Cajun stew over rice. It's out of Hank Shaw's Buck Buck Moose. Love it. Love Hank Shaw. Let me get started because this first part is going to take a little while. And I can do a little bit of talking, but I need to get some of these ingredients rolling. And so what I'm starting with, and we're going to go through the show notes will have everything, of course. And look, I don't follow recipes exactly because you know what? They're kind of like that pirate said in that one movie. They're more like guidelines. Recipes are guardrails. And you are licensed, if you're a good cook, to deviate from time to time. So let me toss this in here as I'm getting this melted. Certain things make me cough when I cook, isn't that funny? But I've kind of jumped right into it. What are you listening to? This is Wild Vittles, and if you're the first time here, thank you for listening or watching, because I do have content both on YouTube and on audio-only podcasts. Same show, just different view for different opportunities for folks. Why would you want to listen to this? I am not an expert, but I'm extremely experienced. I've been hunting for well over 30 years, been cooking for well over 25 years, and I've made lots of mistakes, but I've gotten to a point where I'm a pretty damn good home cook, and I enjoy cooking wild game. And the reason that I've got this podcast and the reason you should listen is that I want to help you be a better wild game cook. So, first step in making Cajun Piquant is making a roux. Roux are a bit of a pain in the ass because you want to make sure that you don't burn them. And you have to make sure that you get them. I've been given a hard time by friends that are more familiar with Louisiana cuisine that, my roux might be too blonde. So let me quickly refer. I put in 2/3 of a cup of, actually mine was bacon fat. You can do lard and you can do peanut oil. And now I'm going to put in 3/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour. Let me get this here. We're going to put 3/4 of a scoop. So I got a 1/4 scoop. Rounded it off. There's 1. There's 2. There is 3. All right. We're going to stick this flour off to the side, and I think I look like I've been baking. Pun intended, using baking fat. So the work that you got to do up front on this roux is to mix in essentially this either oil or fat. I'm using fat with the flour. Starts out about the color of peanut butter. And that's what it's actually looking like. And we need to get it to, let me see what words Hank chose. We want it to get to turn the color. It needs to get to the color of chocolate. And that will take some time. So, Alexa, set a timer for 15 minutes.
Good evening, Chris. 15 minutes. Starting now.
I don't know if you can hear Alexa, but I was playing with controls and I accidentally turned her to an Australian woman. And so I expect her to say blimey at any point in time. All right, this is moving. And you kind of have to keep stirring it to make sure it doesn't burn, because you could go from beautiful peanut butter to chocolate to, oh my God, it's burnt, smelly, and you got to start over. I've seen there are roux that you can just buy in a jar, but I have not figured them out yet because they come in that jar and it's like hard. And I don't understand how I'm supposed to get that out and make that do what it needs to do, if that makes sense. So while this is going, I just remembered I'm supposed to also boil and then simmer, I think 6 cups of water. Start flour, yes, 6 cups of water. I meant to do that before I hit go in the video. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video so you don't watch 15 minutes of stirring, and then we're going to start off with the next component. But what all needs to happen is this roux needs to get to the appropriate color, and this is the base of your dish. Kind of like, we're doing a roux like you would a gumbo, and this is kind of a meat gumbo, and it's a wonderful kind of tomato-based, saucy meat dish that you can serve over rice. One of the things I like about this is it freezes extremely well. It's great leftovers, and it uses my roasts and some of the other cuts that I'd want to cut up. So today I'm going to be using a football roast, and I needed a little more weight because it calls for 3 pounds, and it's a whitetail football roast. And I added in an eye of round from the same buck, actually, from 2022. I'm still kind of whittling down the last of my deer from 2022. So I'm gonna fade to black. I'm gonna let this continue to cook, and when we come back, hopefully it is a beautiful chocolate color. All right, well, we're back, and as you can see, I think my overhead camera wasn't working on the first one, so you didn't get an overhead shot of what the peanut butter looking roux looked like, but now I do have a chocolatey looking roux that you should be able to see. Yeah, you can see that. So I'm in the process of boiling water and chopping up my meat. And so let's see, when the roux is ready, I'm going to add the onions, the celery, and the green peppers, stir to combine, and turn the heat to medium-high, and I'm going to cook that until everything's soft. And I'm going to put in some salt, stir in garlic, Cajun seasoning, tomato paste. Then we're going to drop the heat to medium, cooking a little bit. So that is where we're at now. So I actually had to take the roux, because the roux takes a lot of stirring or it's going to burn. I've got to get it back up to heat. Now, I think we're getting close. Oh, got a little spatter on my finger there. And so what I've got, I know this looks like just celery on top, but it's actually celery. It's a cup of celery, a cup of chopped green peppers, and 2 cups of chopped onions. You'll see that as I get it in. And that kind of stops the roux from cooking any further. And this, if you're not familiar with Louisiana Cajun cooking, is the Holy Trinity. So we're getting all of that coated with the roux. We're going to let that cook for just a few minutes. While that's happening, I'm cutting this whitetail roast. I've already got the eye of round down into small pieces. So, I like to do, I don't know, what is that, 1/2 inch, a little less than 1/2 inch size pieces. They're going to cook down, but it needs to be a fine, this is not a chunky stew. It's more a refined dish than that. So we'll see if that's good. We're going to mix that in. I'm going to get the tomato paste. I don't know if I explained or not, but the water had to boil, and then hopefully it comes out, and then you simmer it. And the trick is you want that water to be not cold when you put it into the roux. I've seen tomato paste where they put it in like a toothpaste tube. Right now I would love that. because, whoo, I about flipped that out. You almost saw that come plumb out. I'll do an instant replay if I can figure out how to do that. All right. Probably making people cringe when I do that on an enamel cast iron. But dadgummit, it's hard to get this off. Trying to get that tomato paste in there. I love tomato paste though. I love tomatoes. Tomato sauce, crushed tomatoes, all those things are just damn good. All right, I need some garlic. This called for 5. Called for 5 garlic cloves. Just a lot. 1, count along with me, kids. 2, 3, 4, keep away the vampires. 5, 4, 5. All right. We're mixing that up. Oh, and I need to stir in Cajun seasoning. Garlic, Cajun seasoning, tomato paste. Always good to refer back to your recipe because this is how we forget things. And then at the end we go, damn, that doesn't taste right. It's looking really good though. How much? A tablespoon. Okay, pro tip, when it calls for something, I'm always like, maybe a little bit more would be better. This is some Tony Chachere's seasoning, and I was trying to get the normal Tony Chachere's. I accidentally got the bold, which is like the hotter version of it. And I've had it in another dish already, and it was fine. So I think I'm good. So I'm going to put in a little extra, a dash. Extra. There we go. We're going to mix that in. We're letting this all cook. Oh, I think we better put in the water pretty quick. It's really drying out on me. Okay, we're going to add a cup of red wine and a can of crushed tomatoes and then the hot water. So, also pro tip, instead of having, now unless you want to drink wine and have an open bottle, if you buy these little servings of bottles of wine, these are 1 cup, which is really awesome for cooking. So I keep some red and white on hand because there's a lot of recipes that call for one or the other of these. Oops. I'm getting, my headphones give me a fit. All right, red wine going in. I like the smell of red wine when cooking. All right, I feel like a little less pressure now because it was getting, the heat was getting high and it was drying out and I was worried it was going to burn because there is a thin, and I mean thin line between just right and burnt. Oh, we're getting good color now. Between the red wine and the paste, the tomato paste, this is looking beautiful. I need my can opener. We're going to put in 2 cans. Two cans of crushed tomatoes, juice and all. This makes a pretty big volume of liquid. Actually, I was thinking of these as being like stewed whole, and that's quite silly if I say juice and all, because crushed is more like a tomato, almost like a tomato sauce. It's kind of a chunky tomato sauce. In. There's a little bit, always hangs on to the can walls. Let me get the other one. Put it in the second can. The recipe calls for one 28-ounce can. Well, I don't have those in my store, so I get two 15 ounces. So, and those among us that are really uptight are like, but Chris, that's 2 ounces too much. You can't have too much tomato sauce. So says I. I think anyway. Okay, we're going to put the venison in, and then we're going to add the red wine, the can of crushed tomatoes, and the hot water, and the bay leaves. So I haven't done this exactly in order because I don't have the venison all cut up yet, which got that sauce in. So I'm going to go ahead and put the water in. This is 6 cups of water that I boiled. And, you know, the reason we boiled it is so that get it up to temperature and it doesn't cool down the dish. I'm going to mix this up, and then we're going to let that heat up. And while it is, I'm going to finish cutting up my venison. Oh, that looks good. All right, I'm going to start, because I got a plate full here. I'm going to go ahead and transfer some of this in to the pot. And this, you're going to see, I've done this before. This is going to make a very full pot. In fact, I'll need it to boil off a little bit later because it's going to come right up to the top. All right. Essentially, that meat is just going to cook in that hot liquid, and it'll cook in there for a couple hours. I'm going to increase the temperature on that. Right, we've got all the meat in, and it is damn full, like overflowing full right now. Last step in the recipe calls for bay leaves. So we're going to put in 2, as I would call them, well, that's not one, that's a very small one. I was going to say honkin' big. Since that was small, I'll put in 3. Here's a good one, and we'll put in another small one. So, and you know, I say that bay leaves are like the baby in a king cake, you know, baby Jesus. And if you find it in my dish, it's like you found baby Jesus. Gives you something to look forward to. I do try to remove the bay leaves before I serve people, but you never know. And that way, it's a celebration if they accidentally get one. Also supposed to put some hot sauce in it. I've got a full Tabasco thing over there. This one's about out, so I'm going to go ahead and put some in. It's kind of a vinegary hot sauce if you're not familiar, and I'm going to finish that one out. And I'll even put Tabasco on this like after. Well, it's vinegary. When you go to eat it, I'll add more to taste. We're going to let this simmer for 2 hours. So we will come back when this is all done. And what you'll see is that this will get better as you put it up overnight as leftovers. It will freeze well, and it makes a great quantity. It used up 3 pounds of venison. And my goal isn't just use up venison. It's to make beautiful and wonderful meals with venison, and that does that. And this is taking those big, muscle groups in the hindquarter, essentially, roasts, and transforming them into a dish that could serve 8 people, I think 10 or 12, over rice, and gives you kind of a taste of Cajun cooking. And it is just absolutely exquisite. So we'll be back after the simmers. Thanks. Hello and welcome back. So when we were last on was actually Sunday night, and I cooked this Cajun Piquant. And now fast forward, this is Monday evening. I just got home from work. I quickly heated up a pot of rice. I microwaved my Cajun Piquant. You could put it in a pot and heat it up, but for kind of a bowl size, I think microwave's just fine. And what I have now is a beautiful, and I'm going to put this for the camera to see here, a beautiful bowl of Cajun Piquant sauce. So I put about 2 cups into a large It's kind of a pasta type bowl, a big heaping serving spoonful of white rice in the middle. I like to put a little Tabasco on it, and I've also got my Tony Chachere's. This is hot Tony Chachere's, but I've put enough in already that it's pretty hot. But I like the Tabasco on there. I kind of had a Tabasco jar that was almost out and kind of used everything else in there, and it's pretty hot. But I like to get just a little bit across the rice, and then a little bit in the sauce too, because it's a cold night, and I want this to warm me up. So it's piping hot. We're going to try it now. I like to mix a little bit of rice. Tabasco makes me cough every time, kind of like pizza sauce. I have this affliction when I smell it, but it does not mean I don't like it. We're going to give it a try, and this has got rice, the sauce. It's small diced bits of whitetail venison roast in it that have been like stewed for hours. So let's give it a try here. This is in my top 10 for sure. It's a great wintertime meal. You could do it in the summer, but I like this heartiness of it. It is kind of just meat and rice, although there's onions and peppers and green peppers in it. They're kind of dissolved into the sauce, so it's really kind of a tomato-based stew, kind of a Cajun stew with rice. But I'm a meat and potatoes kind of fella, and that is right up my alley. So, it's going to make more than I can eat, so I'm going to freeze and save for some other kind of cold days this winter. I highly recommend it. I think it's a great recipe. It does take a little bit of time. This thing took about 3 hours, all in all, and the roux is a bit of a chore to get right. But I think this is part of growing and getting better. So, I hope my experience, and you kind of, if you go back and watch or listen, hopefully you can hear in my voice. I'm a little concerned as I was going through that because the roux looked like it was turning pretty fast, and I was worried it was going to get burnt. I don't taste that, so it was good. And when I went to put the Holy Trinity, the onions, peppers, and celery in there, they were getting pretty dry. So I had to improvise and put some of that hot water that I had boiled that was coming in later in there to kind of give it more sauciness. So improvise, use your intuition, taste along the way. I did taste this to kind of say, is it hot enough, got enough salt, got enough pepper, got enough Tony Chachere's in it. And it came out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. So Cajun Piquant sauce is a good disposition for a lot of your roasts. If you have some that you're like, dude, I'm never getting around to thawing those roasts or things like that, I would do it. I wouldn't necessarily do a shank or any shoulders or long cooks like that. I think those are better for slow cooker recipes. So this is more like football roast, sirloins, eye round, things like that. But this recipe needs a lot of meat, so this is like 3 pounds. You could cut it in half and do like a half serving because I had a big Dutch oven, and that dude was the enamel Dutch oven. That dude was full, so you could probably cut this in half and still have a great recipe. Again, Hank Shaw's book. I will put it in the show notes with a link. Not a hard recipe. Highly recommend it. Hey, if you think this is going well, give me a 5-star rating. I'd really appreciate it on Wild Vittles Podcast. Leave a comment on the YouTube if you're watching there. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe. And on Instagram on the Wild Vittles Podcast, reach out. Let me know. Show me what you're doing, and I'll post up your cooking creation that you're working on. So really appreciate y'all. I'm having a fun time doing this. I hope you enjoy it as well. Thank you and good night.